All right, we are going to talk about VA benefits today. So you guys know I'm always about the three things, right? And this is where it got really challenging for me this week to narrow things in. And so today we're going to be talking about the availability of VA benefits. We're going to talk a little bit about VA benefit eligibility. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about the application process. Okay, so those are the three things I want you to get from today's session. For those of you that are new and may not know who I am, my name is Nicole Broadhurst. I'm a former healthcare administrator turned independent patient advocate, CEO and founder of Tennessee Health Advocates, and creator of The Circle, where I help independent patient advocates create sustainable and profitable practices without the chaos of entrepreneurship. Back in 2019, I took a course with Jason Elkins that really taught me how to stay in business and build a profitable practice. However, it also taught me that I needed a community in order to grow my business, increase awareness of my profession, and maintain alignment with who I am and why I became an advocate in the first place. So, if any of that resonates with you, you are in the right place. That's what this is. So grab your pen, paper, drop questions in the chat. We will get to those at the end, I promise. And I'm also going to share some resources as well. So let's go ahead and dive into VA benefits. So the first thing that we want to talk about today is the availability of VA benefits. So there are lots of benefits that are available through the Veterans Administration. So when we talk about the available benefits, we're really talking about the range of benefits and the services that are provided by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs to eligible veterans, active duty service members, and in some cases, their families and survivors. Okay, these are benefits that are aimed to support the veteran's well-being, the financial stability and successful transition from military to civilian life. And I'm just going to give you some examples of some of the benefits. This is not a comprehensive list. You can find the comprehensive list on the VA website, okay? So there is disability compensation and pension, okay? So a disability compensation is a tax-free monetary benefit that's paid to veterans with service-connected disabilities. Okay, so this is compensation for military members who have service-connected disabilities. The amount can vary based on the severity of the disability, and veterans with dependents can and typically do receive additional compensation. So if it's a single veteran versus a family, they're going to get a little bit more for a family. All right. In addition, there's also what they call a special monthly compensation. This is additional compensation for veterans with specific conditions. Loss of limbs qualifies, severe disabilities. And again, more information is available on the veterans website about the special monthly compensation. And then, of course, there's the pension. Okay, so veterans have access to a needs-based benefit for wartime veterans with a limited income who meet specific age and disability criteria. All right. So not all veterans will qualify for a pension. This gets really complicated. However, many do. So if you have a client that meets that general criteria, they're a wartime vet, they have limited income, check out the pension options for them. Or ask them, they may already know. I will tell you this as we go through this. I have a very dear friend of the family who has severe disability as a result of wartime injuries. And when I talked to him about the available benefits, he was very well educated. And he actually gave me additional information about some of this stuff. I use him as a resource because as a veteran, he has connections and can get really clear parameters and where to go for these things. So I use him a lot in this place. But what I'm saying is that there's a lot of benefits that are not publicly discussed through the VA. So make sure you're checking the list. The second, disability compensation and pension. So that's one area. The second area is healthcare services. And we're going to do a whole session on VA healthcare services. I don't have a date for that yet, but we will do an entire session on that because working and navigating the healthcare system, the VA healthcare system, can be challenging, mainly because just like anything else that's government regulated, right? There's lots of intricacies and lots of things to consider. So, the VA healthcare system is a comprehensive healthcare service for eligible veterans, including primary care, specialized care, mental health services, and preventative care. And this does require veterans to register with the VA health system. It's a separate, much like all of these benefits, right? It's a separate benefit and they've got to enact and register for that benefit. It does provide long-term care options for veterans who need extended care, regarding skilled nursing facilities, assisted living, and even community-based care. So I know I ran, when I was in Nashville, we had a private duty home health agency that was close to a military base. And so we saw a lot of veterans on that private duty that the VA paid for. Okay. Okay, so we talked about disability compensation and pension. We talked about healthcare services. There's education and training benefits. Again, not an exhaustive list, but there's the GI Bill. They have the vocational rehabilitation and employment benefit. They have apprenticeships and on-the-job training. You might be wondering why I'm talking about these. I'm talking about these because I want to share with everyone, my clients are not generally seniors. They're not Medicare eligible. So, for those of us that serve a population that's younger, we may run into veterans that are of an age where these additional benefits would prove really helpful for them, right? In addition to whatever's happening. So, being aware of these benefits can help your clients if they're in any situation. And I personally think having awareness around the Veterans Administration and all of the available benefits just makes us a more valuable resource for those clients that we do serve. So there's the education and training benefits. There are housing and home loans. I know that people have heard about the VA home loan guarantee. That's one option. I know when we sold our home in Nashville, the buyer was actually a veteran and used one of these VA home loan guarantees to purchase the home. Um, Great guy, but anyway, so the VA home loan. And these are the two that I think might be most beneficial for those that we serve as advocates, as independent advocates. One, there's a specialty adapted housing grant. Okay. And this is for veterans with specific service connected disabilities that need modification or a new home built to meet their needs. Okay. And again, this is a grant. It's going to require a special application, all of those things, but it's a specially adapted housing grant, SAH grant. The second one I want to talk about under housing and home loans is home improvement and structural altercations grant. Okay, this is a grant that will assist veterans with modifying their homes for specifically medical reasons. Okay. So if you have a veteran and you're helping them and they need a ramp, they need, you know, maybe they need a no lip shower installed in their bathroom, right? Because they can't get up and over the lip of a tub or a step in shower. These are all home modifications that might qualify for the home improvement and structural altercation grants. Maybe they need a bedroom put on the first floor because they can't get to the second floor. These are all things to consider if you're working with a veteran. If you're working with a younger veteran, there's also employment and career assistance. And I'm not going to go into those, but there's an employment center. There's VA for vets, and this is career support, which includes job fairs, resume building tools, career counseling, that kind of thing. Again, for a younger clientele that is in the workforce, maybe still making that transition from military service to civilian life. That's something to think about as well. And then this is an area that highly encourage everyone to look into. This is insurance and financial support. So, as military veterans, there is life insurance that's available to them at particular rates, like veterans group life insurance. There's burial and memorial benefits that are available. There's burial allowances that will assist with purchasing headstones and other memorial support. And then, of course, there's the dependency and indemnity compensation. This is a benefit for eligible survivors of benefits who died from service related conditions. And I don't know that she's here today, but I know that recently I've worked with an advocate who specifically is advocating for this very benefit for her client. The client is deceased and she's working with the wife now to work on getting that benefit. So again, that's the dependency and indemnity compensation. That's again a benefit for eligible survivors of veterans who died from service-related conditions. And then, of course, we all know about family and survivors benefits. There's educational assistance. There's a survivor's pension. There's also caregiver support. These are programs and support services for those caring for veterans with significant disabilities. So this is, again, not an exhaustive list, just a very wide range of services that are available to veterans out there. And if you're working with veterans, make sure you're exploring all of them, right? There is, I'm going to put a link when I find it here on the VA website where you can go and start looking at all of those benefits. Okay. So there's that link. All right, so that's kind of talking about all the different types of benefits. Let's kind of talk about eligibility. Okay, it's important to know that for each benefit, and this is where things get really tricky, right? For each benefit that the Veterans Administration offers, it has its own eligibility criteria. Okay, so initially I kind of thought, oh, well, we'll just talk about through, but the truth is that if we talk about eligibility, we have to talk about each individual benefit, and that got really challenging. So, like I said, we'll talk about specifically the healthcare system and those benefits. And then I think we will probably also, as I was doing this, I was like, we probably need an entire session just to talk about the VA aid and attendance benefit. That's a benefit specifically designed to help reimburse for medical expenses. So we'll do a session on that as well. But when it comes to eligibility, the really important things to know are this. Each benefit has its own criteria. Okay, so you're going to have to do the research once you identify the benefit that you think will be beneficial to your client. You need to now go into the details of that benefit and specify the eligibility criteria and see if they actually qualify for that. So, for example, disability compensation, the veterans that are seeking and applying for disability compensation have to demonstrate that their disability was connected to their military service. Okay, so they may need to have, like, you may have to pull medical records, right? Both either from the VA health system or from the civilian physician that's documented that whatever this disability is that is related to his service, his or her service in the military. Under pension benefits, again, these have an income restriction for the pension benefits. So typically they're for low income veterans who are either permanently or totally disabled and or over the age of 65. Okay, so if we have veterans that are over 65, they may be eligible for pension benefits. If we have younger veterans who have low income, they may be eligible for pension benefits. But they have to meet certain income and not just income, but net worth thresholds. Okay, so this means all of their investment accounts, any cash value insurance policies, those types of things will be considered when the application is considered. And then briefly, we're going to talk about eligibility for healthcare services. So, eligibility for the Veterans Administration healthcare might require a certain level of service. It might require income thresholds. It might require special conditions like a former POW status or exposure to specific hazards during their active duty. Again, we're going to get more into that in a specific session about healthcare services through the Veterans Administration. Okay. All right. Let's talk about, okay, so eligibility. There are special categories under and exceptions in eligibility in the eligibility area of the VA. So certain groups of veterans have additional pathways to eligibility or exceptions to the standard requirements. And these typically relate to the following groups. One, the National Guard and reserve members. Okay. Typically, these members are not eligible for the same benefits as active duty veterans. Okay, it's important to know that. They may qualify under certain conditions, like if they were actually deployed for active duty or if they were injured during training. But generally speaking, the National Guard and the reserve members are not typically eligible for the same benefits. Okay. There's also a group of veterans with special circumstances. So, for example, Purple Heart recipients, Medal of Honor recipients, and again, veterans that have injuries from service related incidents, they might get additional benefits, they might get additional access to benefits. Okay. And then the third group of special categories and exceptions are those survivors and dependents. So, spouses, children, parents of veterans, they might be eligible for additional benefits in cases of service connected death or service connected total disability. Okay. So when it comes to eligibility, I do want to touch on documentation and verification. There are some things that everybody needs to know. So the first is I want everybody to know what a DD 214 is, right? A DD 214 is your discharge document for active duty, and it identifies the type of discharge, the date of discharge, the status of the veteran at the time of discharge. It is a really important document, and every veteran needs to know where theirs is. Now, you can get a replacement. It's not unheard of. You can get a replacement, but it is a really important document, and most of the veterans that I have known, when I have asked about their DD 214, they know exactly where it is. Yeah, mainly because this proves that they were officially discharged from the US military. All right. Service medical records. It's important to make sure, like, you have your HIPAA form, that either the veteran or you have access to their service medical records, because especially if you're trying to prove service related injuries or disabilities, right? Those medical records will demonstrate that. So for benefits that require that, make sure you've got the medical records. And then of course, these applications can require any number of other service treatment records, personnel records, private medical records, all of those things. All right. So, in regards to eligibility, it's important to know that every benefit has their own eligibility criteria, that there are groups of veterans and special categories that either have access to more or less benefits depending on those groups, like the National Guard, the reserve members, special circumstances veterans, those with Purple Hearts or Medals of Honor. And then, of course, the documentation. Make sure that you know, or at least that the veteran knows where their DD 214 is and how to get access to their service medical records. Okay. So last but not least, we're going to tie things up here, talking a little bit about how to navigate the application process. So it can be intricate. I think just like everything else, they number their forms. They love to call, the government loves to call their forms by their numbered names as opposed to like the title of the form. So try not to get hung up on that. And there's multiple steps involved. There's lots of documentation. And of course, there's timelines for every step. So before you start the application for any of these benefits, it's important to know what forms are related and correspond to the benefit that you're applying for. It's important to read through the criteria, make sure that you're prepared to not just fill out the form, but also to provide all of the supporting documentation for that application. And then make sure that you're filling out the correct forms. Okay, so we've read through it. Now we can go and we can look at the forms that are used for particular benefits. So for example, the disability compensation uses, I could give you the name, but you can find it on the website. It is a VA form and it's, I don't know why I put it here, 21,526 easy. I don't think that really matters, but make sure that you're using the right forms that correspond to the benefit that you're applying for. I know specifically I could give you all of the form names for the aid and attendance benefit. And again, we're going to do a whole session on just that benefit. All right, so you're going to review the benefit, you're going to look at the eligibility, you're going to review the required supporting documentation, then you're going to collect that supporting documentation, whether it's from the military service records, civilian medical records, or any other supporting statements. Sometimes you might need a statement from families or friends or regarding their living situation or whatever the case may be. You're going to want to submit the application. Now, you can do this multiple ways. You can mail it in. You can send it in person. You can visit a regional VA or a veteran service center. Veteran service centers typically are located in each county, I think. I'm pretty sure that they're county based, that you can find a veteran service center. Or there is an online platform. It's called ebenefits.gov, VA, ebenefits.va.gov, I think. So you can check that out. Some of these can be submitted online. And then of course, you're going to want to make sure that you're monitoring your application status and following up. And if you use eBenefits to submit the application, you can also monitor it online through eBenefits. And then make sure that you're communicating with the VA during that process and making sure that it's, going through the process towards either approval or denial. And then, of course, the whole idea of appeals and deadlines. So if you get a notice of disagreement, this is the name of the file that this is the name of the form that you need in order to start the appeals process with a VA. And then, of course, there's a special timeline for appeals with the VA. You want to make sure that you're aware of the deadlines for filing, get those on your calendar. Typically, when I submit an application or a claim or whatever I'm doing, I will put significant deadlines right on my calendar so that there is no way they're going to get by me without me recognizing them. Okay. And then, of course, there is the Board of Veterans Appeals. So this is the next step. If your notice of disagreement, your first level of appeal is not successful, then you can go to the Board of Veterans Appeal. Okay. I'm going to throw a bunch of websites and resources in the post with this video, because we start with the official VA website, and that's a great website. But then you've also got veteran service organizations, you've got regional offices. There's also online advocacy groups that help veterans. There's NOLO, there's the Veterans Benefits Network. There's a host of resources. I really just hope that this session was giving you a good overview of all of the things that might be available to your client if they are a veteran. And like I said, I just want to let you know, we're going to talk about the HES system and the VA and attendance in very separate calls. So if there are other benefits that you want to have a whole call dedicated to, make sure you put it in the topic suggestion form so that I know. But really, I wanted to give you a holistic view of all the things to be watching for if you're serving veterans.